Welcome to footballgameplan.com, where football makes sense. I'm Emery Hunt, the czar of the playbook. Bring you our 2013 NFL team preview for the Cincinnati Bengals. We're going to break down their offense, their defense, as well as their special teams to see what we can expect from the Bengals this upcoming season.
In only his third year in the league, Andy Dalton has led the Bengals to back-to-back playoff appearances for the first time in franchise history. And in my opinion, Dalton is firmly entrenched as a starter. Many people wonder if he can take that next step or if he's maxed out as a player. I see it differently. I see a guy that's getting better each and every year and is on a very young and talented offense that is also growing along with him. Dalton will be fine, nothing to worry about here. Backing him up is Josh Johnson, who I believe is a very valuable player in this league. He has the athleticism out of the group, the most athleticism out of the group, and could step in if need be and do just fine. The Bengals also add John Skelton, formerly of the Arizona Cardinals, who battled it out with Johnson for that backup job. I actually like the quarterback group here for since they have three young guys that are still at the beginning stages of their development. Last season, there was a question about the Bengals' running game. It lacked explosiveness and a true threat. This year, I personally feel that they still have the same issue. BenJarvus Green-Ellis is a tough runner that has a good reputation, despite some times last season of not putting the football on the ground. The problem with BenJarvus Green-Ellis is that he isn't the fastest nor the most explosive back in the league. He tends to get what's blocked, and that's okay, but it's easy to game plan against if you're a defense. Most feel that hindered the Bengals offense in the playoffs, so in the draft they selected Gio Bernard in the second round from North Carolina, a guy that I would classify as the quintessential jitterbug back. I have no problem with the Bernard pick if there weren't better options on the board. Guys like Monty Ball and Jonathan Franklin, both of whom would have given the Bengals exactly what they needed out of that running back position. I think there were better options. And in my opinion, with those two, there's no quote-unquote need for a tandem. Since he also has Bernard Scott, who has great acceleration, and they also drafted Rex Burkhead from Nebraska, who's a good one-cut and accelerate type of back that is quietly much more explosive than Bernard. Bengals hope that all four can make that rushing attack much more potent. The jury is still out, in my opinion. The Bengals have the best receiving core in the AFC North. A.J. Green, in only his third season as a pro, is already one of the league's best. Green possesses that combination of tremendous athleticism and excellent hands. He's a threat no matter where he is on the football field. Opposite of him, there's a host of talented players that each provide a different set of skills. Mohamed Sanu is a big body wideout that has some pretty good athleticism, and I believe he's best in the slot. You have Marvin Jones, who started to come into his own at the latter part of the season when given the opportunity. He's another good option in the slot because of his initial quickness off the ball. The Bengals also have a very good versatile player in Andrew Hawkins, whom they used all over the field last season. But keep an eye on 2013 sixth-round draft pick Kobe Hamilton out of Arkansas, who in my opinion is a cross between Stevie Johnson and Terrell Owens. I want you to think about that for a minute and see where I was going with that. Hamilton gives them exactly what they need at that number 2 spot. At the tight end position is where I think the Bengals will give teams matchup problems all season long. Jermaine Gresham is what you would call a quiet superstar. Gresham just goes about his business as a pro and is one of the more athletic tight ends in the league. Last season, he finished the year with over 700 yards receiving and posted his 4th consecutive 50-catch season, the first tight end in team history to do so. They still have an athletic and versatile Orson Charles, who will see more time in an H-back fullback role this year because of incoming first-round pick Tyler Eifert out of Notre Dame. Eifert is a guy that you can split out as a wide receiver or in the slot as a flex tight end. He gives the Bengals passing game the flexibility and the versatility they need to make the passing game much more explosive and dangerous. Plan last season was to start prize free agent signee Travell Wharton at guard and Kyle Cook at center, but both guys ended up getting injured. The misfortune opened the door, however, for guys like Clint Bowling and Trevor Robinson to step in respectively and play well all season long. It now gives the Bengals solid depth along the interior of the offensive line, along with a couple of players in Mike Pollock and rookie draftee Tanner Hawkinson. Last year's first-round pick Kevin Zeitler was an instant starter at guard and quickly became one of the better players in the division. Zeitler showed surprisingly good pass pro skills, which was a question about him entering the draft. The Bengals also boast 2 solid bookends in Andrew Whitworth, who made the Pro Bowl last season, and former first-round pick Andre Smith, who has blossomed into a stud on the right side. Keep an eye on 2013 rookie Reed Frago as a swing tackle that can play both left tackle and right tackle spots. In my opinion, this unit still has to do a better job in protecting Dalton, who was sacked 46 times last season, which ranked near the bottom in the league. The Bengals are very strong along the defensive line, pretty deep at both end and tackle. Defensive end Michael Johnson had his best season as a pro last year. The 6'7", 270-pound fifth-year guy out of Georgia Tech finished the season with 11.5 sacks. Opposite of him is Carlos Dunlap, who has the talent to dominate, but has to stay healthy in order to reach his full potential. Since he also drafted Marcus Hunt in the second round of this year's draft, he's a player that I still have some reservations about because of his age, because of his production at SMU. I feel as though he wasn't a consistent enough performer for the Mustangs and that they passed on a better pass rusher in Texas A&M's DeMontre Moore. The Bengals feel that Hunt has much more room to grow despite him being 26 years old. We shall see. When you look at Robert Geathers and Wallace Gilberry, both guys are solid rotational guys that can get pressure. Gilberry had 6.5 sacks last season, and they're moving Dante Moak to the defensive end position because of his ability to apply pressure. He was one of the fastest players in the draft coming out of Nevada. On the interior, the Bengals have one of the best defensive tackles in the league in Geno Atkins, who's as strong as an ox and has pass rushing skills, which is evident by his 12.5 sacks last year. D'Amato Pecco is a guy that's 6'3", 322 pounds, very good run defender, and I'm also impressed with the depth of two second-year players in Devon Steele and Brandon Thompson. Also keep an eye on undrafted rookie free agent Larry Black out of Indiana to make a contribution. In the offseason, the Bengals signed James Harrison, a longtime Steelers edge rusher, hoping that he can provide that same type of ability in the 4-3, a defense that he hasn't played in before. Now, the Bengals are also planning to get creative at that same position, with Harrison dropping down to defensive end on passing downs. It's evident that they want guys that could bring the heat from that spot by signing Aaron Maben, and I also want you to keep an eye on undrafted rookie free agent Bruce Taylor out of Virginia Tech, and first-year player Brandon Joyner out of Arkansas State Sunbelt football, who has some pass rushing ability as well. At the weak side linebacker spot, what a year Vontaze Burfict had for the Bengals last season as an undrafted free agent. Burfict was a guy that I graded out as a first-round prospect, and all he did last season was lead the team in tackles with 174. Second year in the system should yield even better results for Burfict. I'm interested to see what he can do this season. Behind him is rookie fourth round pick, Sean Porter out of Texas A&M, who has a lot of speed and athleticism and also excels in coverage. Now in the middle, we have Ray Maualuga, who the Bengals re-signed this offseason. Maualuga was second on the team in tackles with 152, but was spotty in coverage last season. I'm still a fan of his game, but he definitely has to improve his play moving forward. But don't be surprised if undrafted rookie free agent Jordan Campbell pushes Maualuga for more time at that Mike position. The secondary for the Bengals has a mixture of talent and question marks. There's no question about cornerback Leon Hall, who came back from injury and performed very well all season long. He's clearly their best corner. Opposite of him is where the questions lie, and that's why I have some concerns. Will it be the wily vet Terrence Newman, who started 15 games last year, or former first-round pick Drake Kirkpatrick, who's better off as an off corner as opposed to playing press? The staff hopes he can win that job outright, and when you look at Adam Jones, he's as good as a nickel guy as there is in the league, and I'm glad that he's finally turned himself around and became a pretty good football player. Now, the Bengals do get back Sean Prater, who was injured last preseason. He also has some good skills that they can utilize in that secondary. Another non-question mark, in my opinion, is Reggie Nelson at safety. Nelson has quietly gotten better every year since joining the Bengals 2 seasons ago, and backing him up is George Iloka, who I still think should be more involved in his defense. He has played sparingly in the regular defensive set, mostly a special teamer, but he has to find his way on the field. At the strong safety spot is where there is another question. Taylor Mays started last season, but he's a guy that struggles in coverage. Mays will have to hold off third-round pick Sean Williams out of Georgia, who has some solid coverage skills for a strong safety, and in my opinion, he'll get every opportunity to start for the Bengals. Depth is a big concern with this overall unit, in my opinion. The Bengals are solid in the kicking game. Mike Nugent last season made 19 of 23 field goals and has been a very solid performer throughout his career with Cincy. When you look at punter Kevin Huber, who set the Bengals single-season record for yards per average with 46.6 yards a punt, that's definitely getting it done. The return game could be handled by a myriad of guys, Brandon Tate, Bernard Scott, but I would look for Gio Bernard to see some time as a rookie, as a returner, as he has experience in that back at North Carolina. Now let's take a look at what the Bengals have. They have talent, youth, and depth. So this is going to be a very good team for a very long time as they continue to grow together. And speaking of growing together, they have a young quarterback and wide receiving combo. That's going to help the young quarterback evolve, and that's going to help those wide receivers remain consistent throughout the course of their career. And they have a strong front seven on defense. That alone will win you a lot of ball games. Now let's take a look at what they lack. They don't have a dominating offensive line. That could be a question moving forward. They don't have an explosive running back. I know people are going to say Gio Bernard is what they drafted to be explosive. In my opinion, he's not as explosive as people may think. And they don't have depth at the cornerback position. Again, something that could rear its ugly head later on in the season. Reason for optimism for Cincinnati fans: back-to-back playoff appearances. That's a good thing. First time in franchise history. And they also have a very good coaching staff. So Marvin Lewis, hats off to him for doing a great job with this franchise and getting these guys to respectability throughout the course of his time as the head coach. Over the last 3 seasons, they've drafted well. So this is a young team that can be competitive, and not just in that division, but also in the NFL. The cause for concern will be the inconsistency with the secondary. We saw that at times last season. That can't happen this year. And also the offensive line relapsing to what they were last year as far as pass protection is concerned. They got to do a better job of protecting up front. The road to the Super Bowl for the Bengals goes as follows. Gio Bernard giving them exactly what they need at running back. They need that to happen in order to move forward. And the offensive line improves in their pass protection, protecting Dalton, giving him time in the pocket to find those options. And Dalton himself has to minimize mistakes that have plagued him in big games versus top competition, including the playoff appearances. If he can do that, this team can definitely find themselves in East Rutherford. I have the Bengals finishing first in the AFC North. Once again, this is a very talented team. They're consistent. They've added weapons for Dalton, and on defense, they've gotten better in the front seven. So I look for the Bengals to get to the playoffs once again, and this time they hope to get out of the first round. I also want to give a huge shout out to Bengal fan forums for always showing football game plan support.